you all for coming to join us this morning. And I want to thank Chuck for giving us the opportunity to have this panel again. I found out that every year the submission rate between men and women is roughly on par, but that there are many more men who volunteer to be on panels than women, including this one. There's always men who ask him to be on the Women in Film panel, but he reserves it specifically for us so we can have the opportunity to be together and get to know each other. And so thanks so much, Chuck, for this opportunity. Okay, so let's start. Let's just do, since there's so many of us, I want to make sure that everybody gets time. So let's just start real quick with a quick introduction and maybe a sentence or two about the film that you have here. My name is Elizabeth Muir, and I have a film in the sci-fi block at 1 o'clock today with my husband called Sky Guys.
My name's Carly Kacurik. I worked on Halcyon Days, which is a feature-length documentary about the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. It's showing at 3:30 later today. So yeah, my expertise is documentary and more in that direction.
My name is Serena Covarrubias, and I did a sci-fi that's also showing at 1 p.m., very good, called She Fell from Space. I'm a producer, writer, and director.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Woods. I'm an actor and Emmy-winning producer, and my film Mentrix and the Elven Figurine was in the fantasy block on Thursday. It's a magical woman joins a young elf to get a relic before an evil cult can get to it first.
I'm Molly Torres. I'm with Poison Arrow Films. We had a short play yesterday during the short horror block, and we have one playing now during the supernatural block. I'm a cinematographer and reluctant editor.
Hi, I'm Ashley Blackwell. I worked on the film that played on Friday Thursday, called Sisters of the Shattered Moon. I was the producer and production designer, and I worked on that with my husband, who's the writer-director. I'm also the co-writer and producer of Horror Noir, A History of Black Horror, that is on Shudder right now.
And hi, I'm Teresa Lung. I'm a director-producer. I had a film called Game On that played here, and it's about Brenda Romero and the power of video games and board games as art. And I also make video games and board games.
Serena. Okay. All right. First question. I know it's hard to pick favorites. I have a terrible time picking favorites. Who is one of your favorite females in filmmaking and why? It can be a director or a producer.
I'd say Jane Campion. I think her films make people so deeply uncomfortable, and I love how divisive the responses are to them. Like, I always think if people either really love something or really hate something, it's probably very, very interesting, and I find that with her films a lot. Like, they're just really uncomfortable, but in a way that I find generative and really interesting.
I'm gonna go with Bigelow, but probably not for the reason people think. It's because she started out by doing a vampire movie.
It's so good.
And not that many people know this, the story of how she ended up on that. She literally had to have another, the producer had to babysit her to allow her to direct the movie. That never happens with male directors, by the way. And so she had to fight for that because her previous movie was a co-direction. So that's why I think very highly of her.
What was the previous one?
I don't remember the name of the previous, but I do remember that it was a co-direction, and that's why they didn't trust her.
Okay.
If anybody hasn't seen Near Dark, it's absolutely gorgeous. Probably one of my top 10.
I'd say for me, Margot Robbie, because she's an actor, producer who, she's picking which projects to greenlight and produce and making sure they're strong, complicated, female-led projects. So I really love the work that she's doing, both acting and producing.
Probably gonna have to say Angelina Jolie, because she's been actor, producer, director, and was an ambassador. Still is I don't know. She's done a lot and stays busy, so I like that she keeps busy and isn't afraid to try anything at least once in terms of role.
For me, it's For me, it's Mariama Diallo. She did a really great short film that was at Sundance and everything like that called Hair Wolf, and I really like the way she uses the horror genre to tell stories about Black women. And she also did a feature film that was also at Sundance called Master, and it's probably the best horror film that has come out in the last 20 years, if you ask me personally. And because it's just, it makes it just does the job of really getting under people's skin as far as a horror film, and I really appreciate that.
I think Reese Witherspoon is really interesting as an actress and as a producer, as an entrepreneur. So she has championed women, she's championed girls in STEM, she's done a lot of things to get herself and other women and other people in front of the camera and also behind the camera so that they can have more opportunities. And especially as she's getting older as well, she had found limitations, and you think, even someone as famous as that, similar to some of these other examples, there are still these barriers or problems to overcome.
Nice, great answers. It's so hard to pick a favorite. One of mine is Lauren Schuler Donner, who I loved her early movies when she was first starting out. When I was a kid, I loved Mr. Mom and Lady Hawk that she did back in the 80s. Those were her early producing movies, and without her, I think we would not have modern day Marvel. So she was very pivotal in the industry. Let's see. What is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Coming from a cinematographer, if you want it to be seen a certain way, film it that way, so you kind of don't give people an option to change it, because as a cinematographer, I can film massive amounts of footage and give it to an editor, and it doesn't matter that this one was my favorite take or shot, the editor could pick something. So like if you want the movie to be black and white, well, technically you can film it in color, and the editor can put it in black and white. Or I could shoot it in black and white and make it really hard for an editor to try to add color back in later. So just shoot it the way that you want it to be seen, because then that's the image everybody ends up with.
I have one that I wasn't given, but I discovered.
Good.
My trick for pitching meetings, and I'm sorry to the men in the audience, is before I go into a meeting, I remember and tell myself that a mediocre white man is going to do a poor job of the same thing that I'm pitching at. So I might as well go all out. And it has worked wonders for my self-esteem.
Amy Poehler used to have like a vlog that was meant for like teen girls, and one episode of it is her talking to someone that had written in and was like, I want to do all these things, but like I'm afraid to know, like, how do you know when you have the skills to do the thing? And there's a real tendency, I think, particularly with certain personality types, to like wait until you have all the perfect skills to do the thing. And she's just like, great people do things before they're ready. Like, do it now, do it badly. Done's better than perfect. And I think for people that love, whether it's film or a different art form, like if you love the arts, like you probably already have like pretty good taste, like you know what good looks like. And that doesn't mean you're automatically gonna be good at it, but it means you have like a real leg up because you do have that kind of like aesthetic sense and stuff, and it's worth just trying stuff, right? Like maybe you do it badly, like that's more fun than not doing anything.
That's how everybody else learns too, is by doing it badly first.
Yep.
I would like to plus one that I'm part of a film collective called the Film Shop, and we work together to make work, but we also work on our own projects. And I think what you had just said about like doing it, the real challenge is right these mental obstacles that we have for ourselves, I think, of how else to do it. So yes, to plus one be like good, not perfect, but make it. So if it's something that you think you wanted to do a feature, first do the proof of concept, or even smaller than that, do the short, or do a micro short, film it, try it, and then keep iterating on it.
I think too, just like if you're not getting a seat at the table, build your own table. Like I love that saying, because it's kind of what we're doing with our production company, is like finding the collaborators that have the same sort of vision that we do, which is like original stories for inclusive fantasy. And so just like finding your people, finding your team, and then creating the sort of work environment that you want to have too. Like, so you can have, 50-50 men and women on your set, and make sure there's inclusivity in front of the camera, behind the camera. Make sure like the work environment isn't toxic. You're having reasonable days where you get done, like, you know, that aren't super stressful, where people don't feel like they're beneath other people. Like, as an actor producer, I don't want people to feel like I'm above, you know, above the lines above other people. Like, everybody's the same. We're all here to make a film together. We're all collaborators. So, like, yeah, just make your own thing.
Did you have one?
No, I don't.
No? Okay. So I was at a producers conference where Greta Gerwig was talking, and she told this really charming story about, she had done Lady Bird already, and she had heard that they were looking for a female director to do Little Women. And they were interviewing, and she was pestering her agent. She was like, "You gotta get me in there. You gotta get me in there. This is my movie. I'm the one." And her agent sort of looked at her and said, "No one's asking for you." And she's like, "Well, but they should be. This is I'm it. This really is. I'm the one." And so she puts together this whole notebook. She goes in there with this, you know, binder full mostly of sketches, I think, of costumes. Just to show kind of her artistic vision of the film and how she wanted to do it. And Amy Pascal just loved her and thought, "Oh yeah, this is it. This is the one." So she had to really, you know, work her way in there, because she had only done one film, and this was a big budget, and so that was her encouragement, is, you know, be prepared, go in strong with a hard vision, and use color. And maybe they'll like you. Okay, let's see. If you had an unlimited budget, what movie would you make?
I know, but I'm like scared to say it. I'm scared to say it because I'm like, it's mine. Okay. The Last Unicorn.
I love that.
That's my movie.
I would make the series version of this, because this is a proof of concept, so a high fantasy, inclusive universe. Yeah, that's what I would do with my money.
I think my idea was already taken. It wouldn't be a movie, it would end up being a mini series, but I really liked 13 Ghosts, and I wanted to do, because I love I'm a cinematographer, I love special features, I love the bonus things. So when I had the 13 Ghosts and they had the little featurette for like the backstory of each ghost, I'm like, I want to do a mini series where each episode is the ghost and then it ties into like the end, and I think they're already doing that one.
No. That's your comp now, lady. That's your comp. It did well.
Oh,
That's
no.
your comp.
I know all the devices were listening, so I'm pretty sure Amazon's the one producing it too. So I'm like, hey, you guys heard it. I want my finders.
Yeah.
I want the idea. But yeah.
I'd love to do some type of updated mashup of like Real Genius meets Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
I don't have like a clear answer for that. Like, I really, I'm a historian by training. Like, I stumble across stories I think are interesting, and then I follow them, right? So, I don't know. It depends what story I run into.
I mean, those are can be the most expensive.
I mean, we did like a really low budget documentary, so like if I had a bigger budget, they'd probably just make a bigger documentary. Like,
About what?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
There's not one that you've been just dying to do that
No.
is out of reach?
I know, I've been trying to finish the one we bit off more than we could chew, so we can finish that first, right? Yeah.
Ashley?
My interest is mostly in doc work too. I'm mostly a documentary filmmaker mostly, and that was honestly accidental. How I got into horror noir is because of my work online as a writer. I've been doing like kind of digital archiving, Black women in the horror genre, sometimes sci-fi, but mostly horror. And so I had a really great friend who worked at a production studio downtown in Philly, and he used his moxie to try to move and get this documentary about Black horror, because there's already a book about it, written by Dr. Robin Armins Coleman, called Horror Noir, Black Americans in horror films from 1890s to present. And so that was just accidental, because I'm really just a writer. So everything kind of just goes back to my scholarship, because I think Black women in the horror genre are severely overlooked. It has aroused a lot of, it's just made me so passionate about just still kind of pushing those women forward, especially as filmmakers. I don't think that they're respected as much. I don't think they get as much recognition as your Ryan Cooglers or Jordan Peele's, and they're making just as good as work as they are. And so my documentary exploration would be to interview a few of these women, and really I want to humanize them, because it's not just about their art, it's about them as people and how they go through the processes. Like, there's a great filmmaker, her name is Zonda Shea Brown. She's based in Louisiana, and all of her work is tied to her relationship. So far, her relationship with Black women and the lineage of Black women, especially in the American South. So she's really trying to use the visual images that she grew up seeing in her grandmother's backyard to make Southern Gothic horror that is related to those women. And so, and also, it's really about her relationship with her mother who had mental health issues, and how their relationship was very ebb and flow. And so, she's the kind of person I want to talk to. I want to go to her home state. I want to immerse myself in her artistic process, and kind of talk to her about what is a Black woman's horror film to you. And so that's really what I really want to work on.
Talk later, yeah.
Ta-da!
Did we get everyone? Did everyone answer that? Okay, great. That's great. That kind of leads me to my next question. If you could work with anybody in the industry, who would you work with?
I have two, just because I love the worlds they build, I love the things that they do. Guillermo del Toro. As a cinematographer, I would love to work with Guillermo del Toro and all the thought process that goes into everything and how everything's important and ties back to each, like the lighting, the sets, like everything is thought out. And then Nolan, just because there's only so many IMAX cameras in the world, and that man has broken them. Not to mention invented lenses for it, because that's what he would love to do, and I would just love to work with someone that is visionary, that's just like, oh, this doesn't exist and I want it to do this, so let's make it. Or like, there's 4 IMAX cameras in the world. Yeah, it's okay, we broke 2 of them, that's fine. I don't know. That would be a cinematographer. Like, as a cinematographer, that would be so much
Goal is to break an IMAX camera.
I'm just saying. Like, when you have the budget and someone that could be like, yeah, that's fine. Yes. I want to be able to just go for it and be like, yeah, if the equipment breaks, that's fine. It'll work.
I worked very briefly with a woman who was one of the cinematographers for Michael Bay on the 3rd Transformers, and she had brought her own red gear, her rig, and it was for my favorite shot in that movie, probably everybody's favorite shot in that movie, on the freeway, where he transforms on the freeway, and it hurt her so bad because it was her gear, and she just knew what was going to happen. It wasn't supposed to trash her camera, but it's in the trailer. It's the most amazing shot where it takes out the camera in the trailer. And she's just crushed watching it. She's like, no, please, no, not my gear, someone else's. And he's just laughing, and he's like, yeah, that's it. That's the trailer shot.
As long as you got the shot.
Yes.
As long as you got the shot.
At least it was perfect, and it was in there.
Yeah, if you didn't get the shot, oh dear.
I would want to shadow Steven Spielberg, or have him, work with me, right? And then for a woman, I would be interested with working with Shonda Rhimes.
Yeah.
Film and TV right now, it keeps going back and forth, right? And there's this overlap. I think one can learn from the other, especially where things are going right now in our industry. And I think she's extremely savvy, right? And had built up her business from almost nothing, right? And from very challenging circumstances, and then wrote and directed, right? Produced.
Well, she does have a program that just
Yeah.
opened. I'm gonna second on Spielberg as a producer. I would really love to work with him on that front, because I didn't realize until like 6 months ago how influenced I was by him growing up with his movies. And then you start to look at the stuff that you make and write, and you're like, oh shit, yep, that's similar to what he kind of did. I was like, that's where I'm getting all this information from. Like, movies and childhood have such an impact on you when you start working in that field, and they're just kind of embedded in there, and a lot of times you don't realize it.
How about you?
So I've got kind of a weird split answer. I would be really interested in working with Brooke Shields because she does such cool stuff around labor rights. And I'd be like, I don't know, I just think that's like such an admirable thing where it's like you've gotten your success and now she's like running around like trying to protect the workers at like the South Park owned Mexican restaurant in Denver. Like that's a cool way to spend like your influence, you know? And so I think she's like just a really, really interesting person. She always seems really smart and thoughtful about particularly that, like the work of things. And then we were talking about Werner Herzog earlier, and I just wonder, like he finds like so many of his films are about like obsessives, and I think that's something I'm always really drawn to. Also, I saw him speak one time, and someone in the audience, he was showing Little Dieter Needs to Fly, and there's a scene in there where the guy's like opening and closing doors all the time, right? And like totally not a thing that guy does. Like it's a thing Herzog put in. And someone's like, aren't you worried about how like, you know, this is, you know, that's not true. He's like, I just don't think that's very interesting. I just like refused to answer the question. I was like, that's incredible. So
He is so full out. That's what I love about that man. He is so full out about everything. And we have this joke in our house right now about him. Whereas if we, you know, if we're not suffering enough when we're making it, like, what would Uncle Werner say?
I like that he made a movie about someone being like unrealistic enough to build an opera house in the jungle, and so to do that he built an opera house in the jungle. Like, sure.
We're bringing the ship over the...
Yes, that one, oh my God,
Amazon.
yeah. Like, what insanity, but also mad respect.
Yeah.
But also, those poor crew members.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan Coogler, I would say. Just, oh my gosh, Sinners, you know, is one of my favorite movies. And just the whole team that he brings each time to his movies, like this, he tends to work with the same people over and over again. Like the cinematographer is amazing.
Yeah, she's incredible.
So, Autumn is fantastic.
Yeah, I would love to work with him. And then he's also working on X-Files, and that would be really cool to work on. So, yeah.
Very cool.
I would work with Jennifer Reeder. She's originally from Ohio, and I think she's now Chicago-based. She did one of my favorite movies. I think it came out in 2019 called Knives and Skin. It's like a mystical, surreal teen noir film, and I just love the way she works with actors. I love how I just want to work under her because I've always wanted to do more work on movie sets and do more technical stuff. I've been mostly in the editing room and really crafting stories and being a part of the creative process of molding certain doc films. But you know, working with Jennifer and the way she creates narrative film is something really interesting to me. She also does a lot of things that I don't see a lot of filmmakers do, especially as far as representation. And I don't think she does it with the intent, I want to make a film that's about representation. It's not even about that at all. She just kind of has people who are characters and are human who don't all look the same, and I really appreciate that about her. And she just makes it just really fluid. And so I really love her work. I got to meet her at Fantastic Fest a few years ago, and I really geeked out, and I got super excited. I jumped all around because I just think she's pretty amazing. Again, somebody who's severely underrated.
Nice. There's so many people I want to work with, but if you really nailed me down, it'd be the same answer as the budget question. Tom Cruise. Any movie he wants to make. Tom Cruise. What was your very first job in the industry?
This one.
Yeah.
Like I'm not joking. Like I'm literally a historian. That's my full-time job. But I wanted to teach classes about games, so I taught myself how to make games. I have multiple published games. I am really interested in how you preserve games, and one of the things about that is that if a game is not being played, it does not exist anymore. Like it's incomplete. And so when I realized like they were closing the Star Cruiser and that it was a game, I'm like, no one's gonna understand what this thing was. It was so poorly documented. It was so poorly marketed. And yeah, so I had reached out to a documentary filmmaker I had worked with before I do a lot of like talking head stuff for like game history things. And he's like, oh, that's a really good idea, but I'm like, you know, I'm like full up right now. He was like working on something else. And then Carrie, who ended up being the director, she posted on Facebook and was like, does anybody want to make a documentary? And I'm like, yes. And yes, we should do that. And she was like, she said basically the fact that I like obsessively like hyper focused for a week while she was on vacation and had like started like mapping out like the process and like figuring out what we needed. She's like, well, I guess I have to actually do it now. Like she thought it was gonna fizzle, and now it's like 3 years later and it's in festivals. So yeah.
I guess I'll go. I started out as an actor. I started acting when I was 5.
Wow.
That's a very crazy story, actually. There was an audition for a community theater event that my mother forgot about. And I remembered, and we lived in a very small town up in Alaska, and she went to go pick me up, and I was missing. She's like, where does Serena go? And then she's like, wait a minute. There's an audition for that community theater thing. I walked my little butt in the snow to that audition. So I was an actor for a very long time. I was a professional actor in high school, all the way up into my 30s. And that was kind of my in. And I was always a writer. I mean, I started writing when I was 9. I wrote 3 novel-sized books by the time I was 13 because I couldn't read them fast enough. And where we were at, we didn't have access to a lot of books. Like, we had books, but I'd go through them. So I started writing as a means to make up my own stories, you know, because I wanted to keep reading. So those 2 ways were kind of my gateway. And then frustration as an actor is where I became a director.
What kind of, sorry, what frustration, how?
Oh. For those of you who have not acted. First off, actors generally are some of the most mistreated people on set. I was in a lot of independent movies, and I saw, and almost exclusively with male directors, by the way. I got one female director, that was it. And there was a true lack of understanding of the acting process, and that you're not just a prop. You know, you are literally painting with your emotions. It is a very vulnerable position to be in. And that position gets abused a lot because they're all like, oh, okay, all right, I want you to just full on cry again, 3 more takes, 4 more takes, how many takes? That has an emotional toll on you. And I got sick of watching other people not have any kind of understanding of that. And I love working with actors, you know, I came from that place, so I know what's going on with them. And even though we all work differently, I just wanted to create an environment where I could let them do their best work in that vulnerable position, but know that they are protected.
I started out with an internship at a production company on the Warner Brothers lot. I think it was the Thunder Road. And I worked with them when they were doing We Are Marshall. And one of the things that stuck with me then was I had to like call up the college that football team was based on and ask questions to make sure they were getting it right. So when I moved into like producing documentaries, which I also kind of just fell into because we had produced, my husband and I, like a horror film or feature, and then this person that I was with at the theater was like, oh, I heard you completed a feature film and you produced that. Do you want to produce this documentary? But that thing about just like picking up the phone, calling, talking to people, and finding information is kind of what stuck with me with documentaries, because that's how we found and expanded on like our subjects, the people we interviewed, is just like doing the research, reaching out, trying to connect with communities, and really get to the bottom of like the truth. Like what is the greatest truth I can tell about this subject, and how can I honor it the best way? So yeah, started out with internship at a production company, moved to LA after college, spent some time doing extra work on sets as a side job, so have been like an extra, then scene study classes, auditioning, actor stuff. Also just getting frustrated with the actor side of things, because as an actor, you know, especially an actor who's mixed, people don't know what box to put you in. So often it's like, well, you're not black enough, you're not Latina enough, you're not Native American enough. So I wanted to create my own roles and also uplift other underrepresented voices. So that's how I found my way to producing as well.
I've always been a cinematographer, short films independent for now and stuff, but I just always really liked being able to control the frame and what people see, because everyone else's department is slightly useless without a camera to then show off everything. But then I do also have the most important job to show off what they did, because if I'm not showing off the sets, the costumes, the actors' performances, then all their work doesn't get the recognition that it needs. So I like having that importance of, like, when an actor is having a rough day, and we've done the take 10 times, and I'm like, it's not necessarily gonna get any better, we're just kind of wasting time, but like, I don't want to use a take where I know it wasn't their best work, they weren't happy with it, so I'm going to change what I'm doing so we can still get the shot a different way. It's like if their face is tired, they're physically exhausted, I'm not going to shoot them from behind because they can still sell the, like, I'm crying, I'm devastated from behind. And it also then adds a little bit more intrigue or mystery because people want to see it, and it's like the Rosemary's Baby thing where it's down the hallway and you can't really see the actor and everyone like instinctively tries to look around the corner, but you can't because like it's a set frame. So I've always liked being able to control that and dictate that, and if I do my job correctly, then everyone gets the recognition they deserve for their hard work in the department that they work for.
Yeah, but for me, it's just been hard and noir. I don't think I'm an industry person or have any interest, just because, again, the way I stumbled into it seemed kind of like a happy accident. Mostly because I'm an educator. I've taught both college and high school, and that's kind of where my passion is. Like any sort of industry work I may or may not get in the future, it's only to bring back to the classroom to give students, some meat and some value to the work that I'm trying to educate them with. And that's mostly like media literacy, English, the humanities, and arts. And so that's really where my passion lies. So that's kind of where my core work is. Any other outside projects, I just kind of like to do them as an artist, but also just as an educator and kind of bring the two together. So just horror noir was just an interesting experience, again, because the production company was based out of Philadelphia, and then we kind of shot the idea around to different places. I suggested Shudder because we already knew Sam Zimmerman, who already worked there, and he had been a champion for me and my work since the beginning, and I've really appreciated and respected him for just being just a cool guy and seeing the value in the work that I was doing online. And so he kept pushing. Jordan Peele wins the Oscar, then it's like, okay, we'll give you the money to do it. And so we filmed in Los Angeles. So it was like on and off in Los Angeles. We didn't get a budget to do New York because we really wanted to talk to Casey Lemons and didn't get a chance to do that. But again, Jordan Peele was the person we had to interview, and my executive producer was like, we will film him on the moon if we have to. But his schedule, he was really gracious. His schedule was really tight because he was scouting for us at that time. And so we had to go to his first headquarters for Monkey Paw in like the Hollywood Hills. And so he, before he even got there, he was really cool with just, getting his hair cut, so we had the stylist there. Also just rearranging his main office to kind of make it look cinematic, and he was really cool about everything. And so it was just a good experience, just like meeting actual industry people, just interviewing them, getting to tell, Ernest Dickerson, I really love Juice, you know what I mean? Like, so stuff like that, just kind of also being, personable, but also just professional and just doing the whole thing. And that was a great experience. I would do it again if given the opportunity, but I'm not running to do it. I like a stable, quiet life. I like art. I like just going, just teaching high school students and college students when I can, and just being chill.
So my first job in the industry was an internship, similar to you had an internship. I had an internship with a public television station in New York City called WNET. And I hope that this may help some people or bring up some memories. Bill Einreinhofer, big shout out. I don't look like Bill. We're both from New Jersey, but if you looked at us, you wouldn't think we had anything in common. But the reason why I want to say this is that sometimes your mentors or your sponsors, they don't need to look exactly like you, right? They may not have a background that is the same as yours, but for some reason they want to champion and help uplift the next generation. And likewise, Bill's advice to me was, like, be nice to everyone. Like, on set, you like to have things equal. Be nice to people, like, quote unquote, above you and like more junior to you, because you never know. And he knew, he took the long view that as he, grows in his career and then is now like slowing down with, still doing lots of projects, but slowing down in terms of maybe the number or the pacing of it. So people who he brought up, I wasn't the only one he took on as an intern. As we grew more and more, like he was an executive producer on my film. He's been a consulting producer on some of my work. We've been able to grow that relationship so that I now have skills that I can offer him, whereas at the time I was like, enthusiastic, but I had a lot to learn. So that's why, like, very memorable, and I was lucky, right? It was a good first internship. Sometimes internships are not so great. But, yeah.
Okay, internship. I'll tell a story about a failure I had early on. Very sad, still makes me sad. So I so badly wanted any kind of internship at Sony. And I live pretty close to Sony, and I was living, my apartment was very close to Sony, and so I desperately wanted to like run into Kevin Feige somewhere. At the time, he started out in the 90s. He interned for Lauren Donner, and that's how he got his start, and then he started co-producing with her, and in around, I can't remember, I think like 06 or 07 sometime, what he realized is that Sony had the rights to Spider-Man and X-Men, but they did not have the rights to all of the Avengers characters, and so that was kind of his hard pitch when he went to Avi Arad. He was like, well, I want to pursue some of these other characters the way that Stan Lee did for the Avengers, and that was how he got into that. So he was, kind of around Sony. And Amy Pascal was there, and I knew nobody. I had no way of I didn't know how to apply for anything. Like I had no way of trying to get an internship. So what I used to do is hang around in the lobby of Sony. And the only reason that I even got away with that, because they were a little tightly controlled by their parking lot. So the only reason I even got away with that is that I found out that my credit union that I had been going to since I was a kid in Colorado was a sister credit union of Sony's credit union. So I would, go and withdraw $10, or whatever, make some excuse to get into the parking lot. So I'd get in the parking lot, they'd let me park, and I'd go upstairs and I'd just hang around in the building and like have coffee and try to talk to anybody who walked by, thinking this is gonna work. If I do this enough times, Amy Pascal is gonna walk by here, or anybody's gonna walk by here and need an intern, and this will surely work. And it sadly did not, but I still believe it could have. And I want to encourage anybody, if you ever want an internship, and a good word to use, and this has worked for me a lot, especially as a female. I'm not sure this would have worked as a male, but as a female, I've been able to, but it probably would. I mean, I think males should try too. Everybody should try. A great word to use is shadow, because an intern is kind of, it can be a little touchy, especially with minimum wage laws, and it can be a little dicey. But if you ask somebody, could I shadow you for a day? That's a low commitment. It's a low ask. People love to do favors. They love to help people out who are just getting started, and it doesn't cost them much, and it's low risk because they're not going to be stuck with you if it doesn't work out and they don't care for you. Then it's half a day, a couple hours, whatever. So just ask, could I shadow you for a day, especially if you have something specific, like specific that they're doing at that time. And you might get a no, you might get a, well, I don't really have anything right now, but maybe in a couple months, and then maybe you can keep in touch. So it can be a good way in.
Actually, I'll just add to that.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of mileage out of the phrase informational interview,
Oh.
where like, can I talk to you for 20 minutes? I just, like an informational interview so I can learn about careers in this industry, or like how to approach X or Y. And like people are pretty willing to give you like a very finite amount of time if you make like and like I only ever ask for 15 or 20 minutes. Like people often give me more, but like I ask for a little bit.
Nice.
And I wanna tack on to what you said, like, if they're like, oh, maybe in a couple months, you better follow up.
Yes.
Yeah, be on it, be polite, and if not, okay, in a couple more months. It's usually the person who doesn't go away, guys. You know, that's polite, that always shows up, because that's what you need to be in this business. You need to be polite, you need to show up on time.
Okay. In case there's anyone here who might want to introduce themselves to any of you or ask to collaborate with you, share one thing that you have to offer and one thing that you're looking for.
Anyone that has a willingness to help out and shows up. We're always open to collaborations of any kind. We work with a small crew, so far I'm the only kind of cinematographer camera operator. I'd love to work with a second cameraman because shoots would go so much faster if we had multiple cameras. It'd be great. But we're always looking for like new scripts, other writers. Just because we haven't done a rom-com doesn't mean we're not open to it. Just no one's written one yet that we can do. So we're open to anything. If you have a willingness to learn, if you have a specific role you want to do, if you just want to be like, I want to be an extra set of hands, because we mean it when we say you help us, we'll help you. I know other filmmakers are only like, what can you do for me? And I'm totally not going to work on your project, but we do want to build that community where everyone does, like, when we say we're going to help out, we're going to help out. We are going to uplift everyone, because everyone at one point in time has been there and tried to get help and tried to get that extra set of hands. So let's meet up, let's talk, let's do it, let's make it work.
An offer and an ask, let's see. So an ask is that with Game On, what I'm doing is, because it's about a woman in games, and I'm also creating now Game On Labs, where I'm showing clips from the film and then working with high school students and intergenerational audiences about like, how can you make a game about something that you care about. So we've prototyped things about, for example, some policy and civics that are going on right now in our country, and then how can we prototype games to understand more about policy. Some high school students did a game about the pressures of being in high school. These are rapid prototype games, and also about inflation. And then there have been some just purely entertaining games. So I'm looking to expand this throughout the country, and also since Brenda lives in Ireland, I'm looking to do it internationally as well. So if this is something that may speak to you, either as an educator or somebody interested in the game genre, whether board game or video games, please do reach out. And then in terms of what I can offer, I do have this multidisciplinary background, as do many of the panelists, both in education as well as in game design and film. So if you'd like to do an informational interview, you can reach out.
Just support these
I ask, my ask would be, do you like sci-fi? Do you like sci-fi? Because we're live. And if you tell people about them, it would really, really help us out, because as a side note to what I can offer is that I not only am I a feature film writer, director, and producer, but I am a vertical microdrama writer, producer. You want to know anything about that? I know all about it. And not only that, the reason why I asked to be on panels is because a lot of indie filmmakers are sleeping on this fact right now. You can get distribution. You can get distribution if you know how the structure works. And it's not hard. So I'm happy to offer that. We are trying to shoot the rest of the series, so by just sharing it and watching it, it helps us out. That's all we need. But as far as like production crew and things like that, I always need help. In fact, right now for the longer version of this movie, you know anybody who does miniatures? Do you know anybody who's VFX? Do you know anybody? You know, because we've gone and we've been able to do these things, but now I'm going to have to outsource some of these roles because it's getting bigger than what I can do. So that's what I would say.
I've done crowdfunding of projects from $750 to $50,000. The $50,000 one raised $80,000, and we did that without any like consultants or anything. It was just us. So if you would like to talk about crowdfunding things, I'm always happy to talk about that. My ask, we are actively seeking distribution for Halcyon Days right now. It's been in a lot of festivals. It's won a couple of awards, including one here. We've got we have all our insurance. We like lawyers have reviewed it. Like it's ready to go. So if you have suggestions or ideas there, we are happy to hear them. So.
My ask is if you're passionate about fantasy and seeing an inclusive fantasy universe, come talk to me. We're getting ready to probably release this online pretty soon, like within the month. So if you're hosting a podcast or you want to have us on, we're looking for ways to promote that once it hits online. And I'm happy to do informational meetings and talk about my experience as a producer, also crowdfunded a successful campaign before, as an actor, a voice actor. Happy to share any advice.
Do we hear Ashley?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we have about almost 15 minutes, 13 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions for the panelists? Yeah.
So when it comes to being, a female filmmaker, being in the industry, I know the difficulties that there have been. What are ways in which a man can be an ally without it taking away from anything? Because there's a lot of guys who say they love to help and then they end up being front and center on it or something or something to that effect. So how do you help without getting in the way, I guess? And how can you be an ally without it feeling forced or something to that effect?
I'm gonna jump in there really fast, because I work with a lot of men on set too, and when you're in a prominent role like a director, this is a big thing. This happens a lot, where guys want to assert their viewpoint over the director because you've been raised to do that. This isn't a thing you're conscious about. It just happens. So I would say be aware of that. You can work on set and be supportive in any way and ask what this person needs, but if you're not boosting their view or their opinion above your own, you're not being supportive. So I have to say, be aware of what that person is saying and be aware when other people are not respecting that, because it's a really shitty thing. It's a thing that a lot of us have to do on set if we're a female director, and that is what I call asserting dominance, which is that usually somebody will decide that they can take over more than you, and unfortunately, you have to do it in front of everybody, and you have to kind of put them down in their place, It only has to happen once, but it's a thing. Whereas women, we can come on the side, we can talk about this, we can have a lot of nuance. Unfortunately, with guys, it's not the same. So I think as far as supporting women, it's being hey, I'm here to support, And when it's not to say your opinion, absolutely. But when you start pushing it above someone else, just be aware of that. And that's what I'm aware of if I'm working somebody else's set too. So I don't know if anybody else can add to that.
And also that question you asked is a great start, because you're hey, how can I support you? And then listening, and then, as you're saying, amplifying their voice. And also, I work with a lot of guys on set too. I'm married to and so he's been very intentional in making sure, because we co-wrote this film together, and I, as a producer, have been very involved in I created the character, every aspect of this filmmaking process. So he's also, we always make sure that we're talking together. He's, making sure I'm up first, getting to, say my viewpoint, so he's very aware. Yeah. So it's just that same thing of amplifying our perspectives and supporting us.
And I think amplifying not just perspectives, but opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is something where, do you know some people, right? Consider or reflect upon, of the people who you are recommending, are they of different backgrounds? And when I say different backgrounds very broadly, right, are there people who are women or are women identifying that potentially could be part of, if you can nominate a number of different people, to really consider that, right? And the other was what I did previously about the mentoring or sponsoring, right? Or allowing someone to shadow you. Yeah.
I'll, two things, like one, make sure you're, like when you're reading or watching films or watching television, like seek out projects from a diversity of creators. Like it's really easy to only read, like I always use reading as an example because I read like compulsively, but like it's so easy to only read things by people who are similar to you. And like I made like a really deliberate effort to read more diversely a few years ago, and it's really shifted how I see the world. I feel a lot more like I feel better informed on some things, but I also just feel more creative. Like it's a lot more generative to read a lot of different kinds of things. And I would also say like make the social consequences of being a bad man like really dire, right? Like the worst men to deal with, they're not gonna care what any of us think, but they're really gonna care what their peers think. And if it becomes like actually unacceptable to behave that way, they'll eventually stop. Or they won't have any friends, and that's, you know, that's fine too, I guess. But I've seen that work, right? Where like they're not looking to us to see if we're comfortable or if we're okay, but they will look to their male peers to see if what they're doing is acceptable.
Slightly different take from others because I'm not a writer, director, I'm just a cinematographer, but if you're hiring me, use me because I am a professional and I know what I'm doing, not just to fill a quota or because I am a woman. So if I am on set, don't tell me how to do my job. Trust me that I know how to do my job, otherwise why am I there? So regardless of whether I'm female or not, if you are hiring me as a cinematographer, trust that I know how to be a cinematographer. Don't be like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we got an angle from it? Did you pay attention to my storyboards and stuff? Because yeah, no, I'm already, what are we doing that later? Like, let me do my work. Let me prove that I should be here, because that's always been one of my pet peeves. Cause I used to be a fencer. Not a lot of female fencers either, and I did saber. Not a lot of female saberists and stuff.
Japanese martial artist.
Yeah,
we do.
So, so there weren't
It's
a
a
lot of
different
women for me to train with or train against.
Yep.
So I did fight with the boys. When the boys fought each other, as soon as it was go time, they went at each other. The second I was with them, they would stop and politely wait for me to make the first move, and that pissed me off. Because I'm like, I am never going to get better and never even stand a chance of beating you, regardless of gender differences or if you're stronger or faster, regardless of any of that. I stand no chance if you are letting me win, if you are trying to be polite, and like, I'm not going to get better. So trust that I'm here for a reason, and I know what I'm doing, and if I don't, let me make my own mistakes, and I will grow, I will get better. So I don't specifically write or direct to have like the specific female voice, but like I am a cinematographer and I do have my way of doing it. I am an artist and a professional. Let me do it. Don't just be like, oh, it's a woman on set, it qualifies, now do it my way. Like, I have a job, let me do it. I can do it. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, to that point, I think, to me, the most important thing is that you have a common vision, and that whoever's show it is, whoever's the director, male or female, that you're there to support that vision and just focus on the work. Focus on the work and making it the best you can, regardless of how many men or women there are. And if everybody's excitedly, enthusiastically working toward a common vision and to fulfill that vision, then I think that it will be good and the collaboration will be natural. And you don't have to make extra effort to accommodate or be sensitive, or, you know, I mean, I understand the question, but I think focusing on making great work is, to me, always the best way. Yeah.
Do all of you seem to really love what you do? Do you have a favorite moment where something really badass happened that you had a force in creating? Like, what's your most grateful moment or your most satisfying moment, or one of them on set? You were doing a thing and this was incredible and you have to share it.
I'm gonna sound like a monster. I'm really good at identifying who will cry on camera when you interview them. Like, when you want someone to tell you like the big tearjerker story, I'm like, that one. And the director was like, how did you know? And I'm like, I heard, like, I'd been in line near someone and I heard someone gave him like a little gift, which is very common in that particular fan community that we're working with. And he was so touched by the gift, and he was like so effusive and so sweet. Like he's like a really lovely person. And I'm like, we need to interview him. And they're like, why? And I'm like, I really think we need to interview him. And indeed, we got this like beautiful footage of him, and it's not actually in the documentary, but we'll use it for extras and stuff because the story he told was so lovely. But like, I just had a hunch that like this was like something really like personal for him that he had really thought about a lot, right? And it's not just that I want people to cry, but I also like that thing where you get something that's a little below the surface, like is amazing. Right?
You're a cry whisperer.
I mean, I've done oral history for like a really like almost 20 years,
Who's the
and so like I've
crier
done.
in
Who's
the crier in here?
I don't know. I'd have to ask them some questions first. But it's like, I mean, it depends on the topic too, right? Like I could ask you about something you don't care about that much, and it won't matter. But I've done oral history for about 20 years, so I've interviewed a lot of people.
You've got
Yeah.
amazing spidey sense.
I was lucky to have worked with folks from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. I did a documentary for Nova that's called Building Stuff, Change It. And so I was able to work with them, and we were able to go to the U.S. Virgin Islands. And we were able to film, because we're trying to film the problem with corals and saving the corals, because a lot of them are dying, right, unfortunately, because of weather patterns. So to be able to work with like a brilliant set of researchers and cinematographers who could shoot both underwater and topside, that was one of my like greatest thrills. And then we also worked with an underwater robot, right, an autonomous vehicle. So we have both the people who are talking, right, as a documentary. They are not actors, but they're trying to do their job, right, but we have to film the emotion. And then you have an object that you have to figure out, because that becomes a character, right? And then the environment is also a character. So it was both very challenging, but also very rewarding to like make it happen, to direct the shoot.
So there's a dog in our movie.
Yay!
There's a dog, and she's amazing. Okay, she's my dog, but and she's been in 4 movies. But the thing about her that was purely magical on set, which also taught me a very valuable lesson about working with dogs in general. Homegirl, she doesn't take any treats to do things on set. She loves being on set. She's an Australian Shepherd. She wants to work. But the other thing is that she does it perfect the first take every time. I don't know how she knows, but I just talk to her, like literally like another actor. I'm just like, I said, she should go here to here. You know, we at Tail Slate, and I highly recommend doing that with animals and kids. I cannot do any practices. I have to just let her roll. And there's a scene in here where she hears the ship before her owner hears the ship. It's perfect. Homegirl looks up, she pauses for a moment and thinks, and then she gets up and she runs to the ship. And for those of you who haven't worked with animals before, that's a very difficult thing to get them to do. And I was so proud of her. She's 12 now. This is probably the last thing she's going to be in, but I'm so proud of her to be in this. And she does such an amazing dog, and everybody loves her. So that was my story.
I think for me it's a couple different moments, because I'm a cinematographer and I usually end up doing the editing too. So knowing that I'm going to be editing, the crew kind of now knows that like if we're filming and then I start smiling, it's because like that's the take, and I'm like, we don't need another one. That's what I'm using when I'm editing. That's it. We're good. That was like the perfect timing, or whatever happened. Whether it's like we're doing a horror movie and you get the reflection of the victim in the knife as it's going down, and kind of unintentional, but you're like, oh yeah, it's so much better. Because like when you try to make it happen, it doesn't work. So sometimes there are those happy accidents that do end up while you're on set. And so once they know that I start smiling, I'm like, we're moving on. That's it. We got it. We're going.
For me, right now I'm working on a documentary about civilian internment camps in the Philippines during World War II. Our director, her mother was in the camps at age 12, so it centers around her, because they still get together now, even in their like 90s, every year and have reunions. And I wanted to find some of the guerrillas outside of the camp, but most of them have passed on now because they've all, they're old, And so I sent letters to professors at UCLA. I was trying to reach out, and we couldn't find anybody. And then finally, one of them passed it to somebody at University of Philippines, and they got back to me. And we took a trip to the Philippines this year, and I got to meet this woman who's 100 years old. She was a guerrilla fighter when she was like 12 years old, passed some information that helped, rescue some of the American civilians in that camp. And then, she faced extreme torture because of those actions. So being able to sit across from her at 100 years old and hear her story, and it was just something I'll always remember because it was so inspirational. And yeah, she's just so witty and brilliant and sweet, and yeah.
I think we
Really
found a
proud of
crier.
My first time producing was on a micro-budget feature, and that we shot out in the desert outside of Vegas in July in 112-degree weather.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was so desperate to, we had so little resources. We shot out of the back of a Mini Cooper, and I was so desperate to provide as much as I possibly could to my director. And at one point there was a scene he wanted to do at the top of a mountain. And I was like, okay, how am I gonna get out there? How am I gonna get us up there? And I drove my Mini Cooper up there, balanced on mounds. It was mounded up. I have no idea why. There was no center to the road. It was just two mounds. And I'm like, oh man, okay, if I go off this mound, I'm gonna get high centered and I'm gonna get the car stuck, and there's nobody around to come bail me out. I don't even know how you tow this car out of here. They'd probably just leave it for all of time and total the car. So I had to balance the Mini Cooper up these mounds all the way up the mountain, and I didn't even realize quite how crazy this was until he took a picture of me standing next to it with the trunk open, and the car is balanced on mounds like this, and you could see the whole path that I had driven up, and it got us up there, and he got the shot that he wanted.
Oh.
And then later I married him.
Well, yeah. that tracks right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, my version of the story is she didn't want to walk.
So, well, I think we're out of time. Thank you all so much. This was very fun. I hope you all had fun. And thank you for coming.